All set?
That's it.
Ms. Leach, are you ready?
I am. I'm just waiting for the live stream pictures to appear. Just a moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, it is 4 p.m. and I see the live stream has begun.
Okay, thank you. This is the October 3rd meeting of the Town of Pelham Committee of Adjustment. I'm calling the meeting to order, and a quorum of the members are present. Ms. Leach, could you start the meeting with a reading of our land recognition statement?
Yes, I'm actually going to have our legislative coordinator do that this evening.
Good evening. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you. We will just provide some introductions to the panel today. We have Mr. Colin McCann on this side of me, and Mr. Don Rodbard on this side of me, and I'm the chair, Isaiah Bannock. Some opening statements on behalf of the committee. This is a hybrid hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present and viewing at home via live stream will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Agencies commenting on the applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should an application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application, relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. During the public portion of each application, we will hear from anyone wishing to submit verbal comments or submit written comments via email to clerks@pelham.ca. That is email to clerks with an S at pelham.ca. Comments received following the public portion will not be considered. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions may be determined by the committee following the hearing. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant, or agent, and members of the public that have submitted comments. Notices of decision can be obtained by request to the Secretary-Treasurer. Committee members are asked to raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote. Applicants, agents, and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar hearing once a decision has been made on their application. Okay, moving to the approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve.
I move we approve the agenda.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Does any member of this panel have any pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
I do not.
I do not.
And none for me either. Ms. Leach, any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there has not been.
Thank you. All right, we are on our way to the first application. The first application is file number A21-2023P. Oh, I'm sorry, I've read the wrong one. A20-/2023P, 97 Port Robinson Road. Ms. Leach, will it be you who will be reading the summary presentation, or will that be Ms. Lee Gross?
Yes, that will be me, and I'll share my presentation.
Thank you. Committee
of Adjustment hearing Tuesday, October 3rd at 4 p.m. The Town of Pelham is holding hybrid Committee of Adjustment hearings. A hybrid hearing involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance. The following presentations are based on the Town of Pelham Planning Department report and analysis. No decisions have been made prior to this public hearing. All comments received from commenting agencies and the public have been forwarded in full to the Committee of Adjustment members for their consideration and will appear summarized on the slides to follow. Decorum. The Committee of Adjustment is a formal public hearing requiring decorum. This means that all comments are to be made through the chair. If you've pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you'll be given the opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If you're live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Please note that comments must be received during the public portion of the meeting, otherwise they will not be considered. Inappropriate comments will also not be tolerated. And if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons asked to leave. First application this evening is A20/2023P 97 Port Robinson Road. The subject land is located on the north side of Port Robinson Road, lying east of Station Street, known locally as 97 Port Robinson Road. The application seeks relief from Section 3.28.1 AI, Urban Area Maximum Floor Area, to permit a maximum floor area of 92.5 meters squared for a second dwelling unit, whereas the bylaw permits 75 meters squared. To date, the following comments have been received. From the building department, no C condition. Public Works, no comment. And no public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Minor variance test 1 is the variance minor in nature. Yes, the area of the basement is existing and is not proposed to be enlarged. The second dwelling unit will remain secondary to the principal dwelling unit on the upper level in terms of floor area. The increase in floor area will not have any impact on the dwelling as viewed from the street. Test 2 is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land. Yes, the requested increase in floor area will recognize the existing size and layout of the basement and will contribute to providing a more affordable housing and rental opportunity for future residents and rental income to the owner. Test 3, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Yes, permitting second dwelling units is intended to increase the affordable housing supply and encourage intensification while at the same time. Test 4, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? Yes, second dwelling units were introduced to the OP to provide more opportunity for intensification and affordable housing choices. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal makes sufficient use of the land, will not result in the overbuilding of the property, will not alter the view, sightline, or personal enjoyment of the subject property or any neighboring properties, and should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with respect to land use incompatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. Planning staff recommend that application number A20 be approved, subject to the following condition: that the applicant apply for and receive a building permit for the proposed conversion of the basement into a second dwelling unit. Mr. Chair, we do have the applicant's agent with us this evening, Jennifer Vita, and she's in the meeting via Zoom.
Thank you, Ms. Leach. My name is Jennifer Vita. I'm here on behalf of Buffalino and Hummel in request for a minor variance to increase the minimum floor area for an accessory dwelling unit. So the request we're making is actually a difference of about 187 square feet, which is very minor in nature. There is adequate on-site parking. There's 2 parking spaces in the garage and 2 parking spaces in the driveway. And we're here tonight to request approval of the minor variance. We have read staff's report and agree with all of the proposed conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Vita. Is there anyone else here on behalf of the applicant? Just yourself, Ms. Vita. Okay, thank you for that. So we will move to the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone, Ms. Leach, who has pre-registered via Zoom to speak to this item?
No, there is no one, and I have checked the email. We've received no emails.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here in the audience who would like to speak to this matter? Yes, come on up. Thank you. Yeah, please come forward to the podium and start with your name for our record as well, please.
My name is Amy Jones. I'm a resident in the area. The only question I have is the entry into the lower dwelling that's proposed, as there isn't currently access access to the lower dwelling and whether or not that changes any of the presented information.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to make sure that I've understood. So you're inquiring on how access will be, what the access is to the second, the new unit,
Yeah, my
the proposed
understanding is
unit.
that the access to the lower level is either from the second level, contained within the second level living area, or through a sliding door area, which I don't know if you can convert that to entry or not. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. What would you like me to repeat?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if Ms. Leach and Ms. Vida heard, so perhaps ask the question through me, please. Continue, and I just want to make sure that we understand your question. So let's try it again. Thank you.
If I am correct, which I stand to be corrected, but my understanding is that the access to the lower level is limited to through the dwelling of the first floor, main floor entry, or through a sliding door area, which doesn't typically have access from the outside if locked. So my only question is connected to if they propose an alternative entry to the lower level as part of the building permit, does that change the impact of the information that was provided as far as, sight lines, cosmetic of the building, those kinds of things, because currently that isn't in place?
Right, I see. Okay, thank you for that question. I will perhaps turn to Mr. Edwards, our town planner. In reviewing the plans, what is the entrance requirements, and is there a secondary entrance as well?
Through the chair, excuse me. The entrance is proposed through the rear of the dwelling, or sorry, the rear of the dwelling, or through the existing dwelling unit. In terms of its impact, if there's a secondary entrance, there's no secondary entrance proposed at this time, and as such, there wouldn't be an impact to the elevations or the streetscape.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards, and Ms. Vida. I'll ask the question of you as well, if you have any comments with respect to the entrance.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. There is actually a separate man door in the rear of the building. There's a recessed deck porch area that has a sliding patio door and also a man door. That'll be the main entrance to the secondary dwelling. There's no physical changes being proposed as a result of this application. It is going to remain exactly as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for those comments. Is there anybody else here today that wishes to speak to this matter? Ms. Leach, I'm going to ask one more time just to check if you've received any emails in relation to this matter.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not.
Okay, thank you. Then I will look for a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Make that motion. Closed. Did you hear that?
And I'll second.
Thank
All
you.
right. So public portion of the meeting is closed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Vida, for your comments as well. Any questions or comments from the committee on this?
I have none.
No. None.
Thank you. I have kind of I am supportive of the variances, and in my view, it satisfies the tests, which I'll comment on a bit more in a minute. But I had a question for, I think it's for Mr. Edwards again. Why is there a 75 square meter limit in the zoning bylaw? I was trying to understand that myself. I understand that secondary dwelling units are secondary to the main unit, but I was curious where the 75 square meter comes from, if it comes from anything in particular. I think in this case, as I mentioned, it still satisfies the branch of the test requiring maintenance and maintaining an intent of the zoning bylaw. But I wanted to ask that question to provide me with some clarity.
Through the chair, as you mentioned, it is the intention to ensure that secondary dwelling units are secondary to the principal dwelling. As for the actual square footage limitation, I'm not sure exactly where that derived from, but it really is the intention to ensure that the secondary dwelling unit is secondary to the existing dwelling.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I know sometimes these standards, I've looked at standards myself and not known where they've come from, so that's entirely understandable, but I think it also speaks to what the intent and the purpose is, and the intent and the purpose here is that it's secondary, and I think that's being achieved here, and it's fairly clear in my mind that it satisfies all the branches of the tests, including adding the second unit to a building, and providing that additional accommodation and satisfying the intent and purpose, maintaining the intent and purpose of the official plan as well. So this is something that I'll be supporting. Are we ready for a motion on this?
I'll make the motion. With reference file A20/2023 P97 Port Robinson Road, Pelham, an application for a minor variance allowing maximum accessory dwelling unit size to 92.5 square meters. I move this application be granted. For reasons, the variance is minor in nature as the basement is existing and not proposed to be enlarged. There will be no impact on the dwelling as viewed from the street. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposal is desirable for the land as it will contribute to more affordable housing. It will provide a rental income opportunity to the homeowner. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. In making this motion, this committee considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance. The one condition is that building permit brackets S for the conversion of the basement into a second unit be obtained.
I'll second the motion.
All right, very good. That's carried. Thank you. We will move to the next item on the agenda. This is file A21/2023P, 1167 Maple Street. Ms. Leach, could you read the summary presentation for us, please?
Yes, absolutely. The subject land is located on the east side of Maple Street, north of Canberra Road, known locally as 1167 Maple Street. The application seek release from section 6.1.2 maximum front yard, requesting a max front yard of 19.35 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted. Section 4.1.4.3a maximum driveway width, requesting a maximum driveway width of 7.62 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted. To date, the following comments have been received. From the Building Division, see conditions. Public Works Department, please be advised that no side yard walkways that impede side yard swales shall be permitted. See conditions. No public comments were received at time of writing this report. Minor variance test 1 is the variance minor in nature. With respect to section 6.1.2, yes, there will be minimal impacts on the streetscape, and there remains adequate lot area to site the new dwelling. No impact on the character or of the neighborhood is anticipated. The variance will enable the owner to retain the existing dwelling in the interim while the new dwelling is constructed. Section 4.1.4.3, yes, the driveway width at the entrance from the street is not proposed to change. The streetscape will not be altered in any significant way. Test 2 is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land. Max front yard, yes, the variance will allow for the retention of the existing dwelling in the interim while the new dwelling is constructed. The development is not anticipated to significantly alter the character of the neighborhood. Max driveway width, yes, the driveway width at the entrance from the street is not proposed to change. The streetscape will not be altered. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Max front yard, yes, the intent of the maximum front yard setback is to enhance the streetscape through encouraging shallower front yard setbacks, which are intended to facilitate compact built form, increase safety through traffic calming and framing of the street, provide for eyes on the street, and facilitate a human-scale development. Max driveway width, yes, the intent of the maximum driveway width is to limit the visual impact on driveways on the streetscape. It is noted that the increased driveway width is necessary for the portion of the driveway in front of the garage and not the width at the street. The driveway width at the entrance from the street is not proposed to be enlarged. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? For both, yes, the variance will not compromise the ability of the dwelling to conform to the OP. Planning staff are of the opinion the proposals make efficient use of the land, will not result in the overbuilding of the property, will not alter the view, sightlines, or personal enjoyment of the subject property or any neighboring properties, and should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regard to land use incompatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. Planning staff recommend that application A21/2023P be approved subject to the following conditions. That the applicant apply for and receive all necessary building and demolition permits from the chief building official. That town staff will require a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan to demonstrate that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. A construction or modification of existing driveways requires a driveway entrance permit. This permit is obtained through Public Works. All associated costs with this permit are the responsibility of the owner. And that the applicant enter into an interim second dwelling agreement with the town to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Planning and Development. Through you, Mr. Chair, we should have our applicant or agent with us this evening.
Yeah, thank you. Come on forward if you're wishing to speak to this. And start with your name, please. There's a button up there to press a bit hard. There you go. It's on. Thank you.
My name is Mark Chumley. I'm the owner of the property. I concur with the report and recommendation, and then open for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Are there, sorry, maybe I will just ask if there's anyone pre-registered. Oh, sorry, I'm going a bit out of order here. Any questions for the applicant?
No, I have none.
Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you. Yeah. Do we have anyone who's pre-registered to speak via Zoom?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Doesn't look that way. Okay. Any email submissions, Ms. Leach?
We've received none.
Okay. Motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
I move we close the public portion of the meeting.
Okay, I'll second that. Any questions, comments?
No, I have none.
None here.
Okay, none for me either. Is there, are we ready for a motion?
Okay, I will make the motion. With reference file A21/2023P, 1167 Maple Street in Pelham, applications are made for minor variances of driveway width of 7.62 meters and maximum front yard of 19.35 meters. I move this application be granted for the following reasons. The variances are minor in nature as the driveway width is not proposed to change. The streetscape will not be significantly altered. The neighborhood character will not be impacted. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. And the proposals are desirable for the land as it will allow for the retention of the existing dwelling in the interim while the new dwelling is constructed. These applications are granted without prejudice to any other application to the town of Pelham. In making this motion, the committee has considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and the recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. The applicant is aware no side yard walkways that impede the side yard swales are permitted. The conditions for this motion, building and demolition permits be obtained. The applicant enters into an interim second dwelling agreement, submits a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan, and obtains a driveway entrance permit if necessary.
I'll second that. Thank you. Okay, congratulations. That is approved for the Maple Street property. We will move forward to our next matter, which is the application for consent at B11/2023 P1008 Haste Street. Ms. Leach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. So B11 and A17 are related, and we'll begin with the consent first. So file B11/2023 1008 Haste Street. Application is made for consent to convey 91 square meters of land, being Part 2, to be added to Part 1, being 1022 Haste Street, for future construction of a detached accessory garage. Part 3 is to be retained for continued residential use. To date, the following comments have been received from the building department. No comment. Public Works, please be advised that no side yard walkways that impede side yard swales shall be permitted. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed boundary lot adjustment is consistent with the PPS and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans. Planning staff recommends that application number B11 be approved, subject to the following conditions. That the applicant ensure Part 2 merges on title with Part 1. That the Secretary Treasurer be provided with a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of a certificate of consent. That the final certification fee of $423 payable to the Treasurer, Town of Pelham, be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. All costs associated with fulfilling such conditions shall be borne by the applicant. That the applicant submit a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan to demonstrate that drainage neither relies on nor negatively impacts neighboring properties to the satisfaction of Public Works. And that the applicant confirm that no existing utilities cross the proposed lot lines. Should any services cross these lines, the applicant shall be responsible for the costs associated with their relocation and/or removal. And through you, Mr. Chair, you should have the applicant with you this evening.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Yes, so come on forward. Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, I'm Bill Harper, the owner of the property. One suggestion I never considered before I came here tonight was I didn't know what these recommendations, or maybe I didn't read the paperwork I probably got beforehand, regarding specifically the lot drainage plan. Is that something I have to do just to fulfill the consent, or is that something I can do at the time of applying for building permit? Because we're a ways away from doing any kind of construction. We're just trying to get the consent and the minor variance. I'm not sure if that's something you can answer now, or I'll have to.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, that would be a condition that would need to be fulfilled as it relates to the minor variance side of the application. In terms of the timing of that, maybe I'll turn it to Mr. Edwards again to give you a more specific answer.
So through the chair, it would be a condition of approval that would need to be satisfied. That being said, you do have a period of 2 years to satisfy the condition, so there shouldn't be a time constraint with the requirement.
Through the chair, does that mean then that when it comes time, let's say for example, this consent we're looking for approval for still won't be approved until I submit the building or the drainage plan?
So, so what happens is it's called a conditional consent.
Okay.
So you get approval, and you have to fulfill the conditions, one of which relates to this drainage matter we're talking about. So if you do that, you have a 2-year limit to fulfill those conditions. If you don't fulfill them in the time, then the consent expires. It reverts back. It's as though it didn't happen. But the approval today, you don't need to come back to this committee for a new approval. You have to satisfy those conditions.
All right. I was just going to say then the minor variances and the lot line adjustment will facilitate an appropriate and desirable use of the subject lands. The proposal meets the 4 tests of the minor variance per the Planning Act and is considered good land use and planning, good use planning, and should be approved.
Very good, thank you. So, I apologize. The committee might not have been clear with the order in which we're doing things because we have 2 of your matters here together.
All right.
And the first matter we're talking about is the consent, and the second matter is the minor variance. It's a bit of a technicality the way we look at it. we've heard your comments. One, the minor variance component will be determined after the consent part. So right now, the committee will consider the consent, whether or not the strip of land should be added, and then we'll go through the minor variance component as well. So
All right,
we've
thank
received your comments, which we'll consider, or you're welcome to speak again at the time of the minor variances.
All right, through the chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Ms. Leach, do we have, is there anyone else who is here on behalf of the applicant?
No, we have no one pre-registered to speak towards this application from the public.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in person who would like to speak to this? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Do we have any comments by email?
For you, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay, I didn't ask the committee if they had questions for the presenter.
None.
No, I have none.
No, okay. So I think we will close the public portion of the meeting then. Is there a motion to do so?
I move to close the meeting.
Okay, I'll second that. So public portion of the meeting is closed. Any comments, questions from the committee?
No, I have none.
I have none either.
Okay, I also have none. So are we ready for a motion?
Yes, we are. This is the motion you want?
That's your motion, but
That's it?
that's the one.
Okay, application for file B11 / 2023 P 108 Hay Street.
Sorry, through Mr.
Condition,
Chair, can I have the member turn on his microphone?
I don't think it's working.
Oh,
Now I hear you. Thank you.
try again.
Can everybody hear me? I'll yell, okay?
Thank you.
To the satisfaction of Director of Public, the above decision is subject to the following conditions. To the satisfaction of Director of Public Works, 1, submit a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan. 2, confirm no utilities cross proposed property line. To the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer, merge Part 2 with Part 1. Provide the Secretary Treasurer with A, solicitor's undertaking, B, registrable legal descriptions, and C, copy of the deposited reference plan. 3, that the final certificate fee of $423 be provided. This decision is based on the following reasons. 1, the application conforms to and complies with the town official plan, regional policy plan, and provincial policy statement, and the town's zoning bylaw. Point 2, the decision is rendered having regard to sections 51, open bracket 24, close bracket, and 51 in brackets 25 of the Planning Act. The committee considered all written and oral submissions and finds that, subject to the conditions, this application meets Planning Act criteria, is consistent and complies with provincial, regional, and town planning policy. And point 4, the applicant is aware no side yard walkways that impede side yard swales shall be permitted. And that's the end.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, very good. That is approved. So that is the consent part of the application, which has been approved by this committee. Ms. Leach, should we move to the minor variance component A17 2023P 1022 Hayes Street?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. The subject land is located on the west side of Hay Street, lying south of Welland Road in the town of Pelham. The application seeks relief to facilitate the construction of an attached accessory garage, rectify a rear yard zoning deficiency as a result of consent application B11, and recognize the existing front yard setback from section 6.1.2 maximum front yard to permit a maximum front yard setback of 10.8 meters, whereas 6 meters is required. Section 6.1.2 minimum rear yard to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 1.2 meters, whereas 7.5 meters is required. To date, the following comments have been received. The Building Division, no comments. Public Works, please be advised that no side yard walkways that impede side yard swales shall be permitted. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Minor variance test 1 is the variance minor in nature. Section 6.1.2, yes, the variance is not a result of new construction. Rather, it recognizes an existing deficiency from a new provision introduced in 2022. Section 6.1.2, minimum rear yard. Yes, there remains adequate rear yard amenity space to service the dwelling and not alter the functionality of the amenity space. Minor variance test 2 is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land. With regard to front yard, yes, the variance recognizes the existing conditions on site. Again, no new construction is proposed. Minimum rear yard, yes, the requested variance is not anticipated to have a significant negative impact on the streetscape or adjacent properties, and private amenity area will be maintained on site in the interior side yard. Test 3, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Max front yard, yes, the intent of the maximum front yard setback is to enhance the streetscape through encouraging shallower front yards. As well, the variance recognizes existing conditions on site. Minimum rear yard, yes, the parcel will maintain adequate rear and side yard amenity space. The reduced rear yard setback is not anticipated to have a significant visual impact. Test 4, does variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? Max front yard, yes, the variance will have no impact on the streetscape as viewed from Welland Road, as it recognizes existing conditions. Minimum rear yard, yes, townhouse dwellings are a permitted use in the designation. An objective of the OP is to ensure that new development shall maintain and enhance the character and stability of existing and well-established residential neighborhoods with regard to scale and density. Planning staff are of the opinion the proposals make efficient use of the land, will not result in the overbuilding of the property, will not alter the view, sightlines, or personal enjoyment of the subject property or neighboring properties, and should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regard to land use incompatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. Planning staff recommend that application number A17/2023 be approved, subject to the following conditions. That all necessary building permits be acquired prior to construction commencing. That the approval of minor variance A17 is subject to the final certification of consent file B11. That town staff will require a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan to demonstrate that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact or rely on neighboring properties. That the applicant confirm that no existing utilities cross the proposed lot lines. Should any services cross these lines, the applicant shall be responsible for the costs associated with their relocation and or removal.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Leach. Mr. Harper, do you have any additional comments? Come on up.
Through the chair, I have none.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments for Mr. Harper from the committee members?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. Do we have anyone who's pre-registered to speak, Ms. Leach?
We do not, and we don't have any emails either.
Okay, very good. Is there anyone in person? It doesn't look like there's anybody here to speak to it either. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of the meeting?
I move we close the public portion of the meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harper. You can have a seat. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee?
I have none.
Oh, I have none.
I have just a kind of a small question here, which I don't think anything turns on this, but I had a question, again, for Mr. Edwards. I've asked you a few questions today. Are two driveways permitted in the town? I know that in this case, there's a driveway off of Welland and a proposed driveway off of Haste.
Through the chair, yes, they are. They have to have over a certain frontage, which in this case, this lot does, and I believe they have a permit for both driveway entrances as well.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that answers my question. I think this is a practical use of the property. I think it satisfies the tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to support it as well. Do we have a motion here?
I will make the motion with reference to file A17/2023P, 1022 Haste Street in Pelham, An application made for minor variances of max front yard 10.8 meters and minimum rear yard of 1.2 meters. I move this application be granted for the following reasons. The variances are minor in nature as it recognizes existing conditions. Adequate rear yard amenity space remains, will not substantially alter functionality of the site. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained and the intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposals are desirable for the land as it recognizes existing conditions, is appropriate private amenity area will be maintained and will not affect the original intent of building design. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. In making this motion, the committee considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance. The applicant is aware no side yard walkways that impede side yard swales will be permitted. The condition to this is the applicant obtain building permits that file B11 2023P received final certification, that a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan be submitted, and confirm no existing utilities cross the proposed lot line.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's carried. Very good. So that has been approved as well with respect to the minor variances. And that takes us towards the end of our meeting. I believe there are minutes for approval as well, Ms. Leach.
That's
Yes.
correct. One set from August 8th.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move those minutes be approved.
Okay, I'll second that. Thank you. And I think that's it. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you.